Hi friends, and welcome back to my video. If you don't know me, I'm Laura, a chemical engineering student who's completely obsessed with knitting and everything yarn fiber related. And if you do know me, hi and welcome back to my channel. Grab your drink, grab a snack. I'm currently drinking a fire energy drink, 0 sugar, like all of my other videos. And let's start talking about a subject I've been dying to tell you about, namely synthetic made fibers. So your acrylics, your nylons, your polyesters, and everything like that. We're knitting with them all the time, but how are they actually made? What are the fibers? And what is their impact on the environment? Today I want to do a deep dive into the synthetic made fibers and tell you all about them so that you know what you're knitting with. So let's settle in and let's unravel the chemistry behind all of this. I've gotten so many requests from you guys over at my TikTok wanting me to explain why acrylics pill so much. So if you want to know that, stick to the end and I'll give you the answer. So synthetic fibers are basically long chains of repeating chemical units that create this longer molecule that we call a polymer. Unlike wool or cotton or silk, which nature makes for us, synthetic fibers are man-made in the laboratory. They usually start with a simple petrochemical unit, which is then stitched together to create this longer molecule. And this stitching together process is called polymerization. And those chemical structures determines everything we feel, from the softness to the warmness to the durability of the yarn. Okay, so let's start with acrylic, maybe the most common and affordable yarn type that is. Acrylic yarn is actually polyacrylonitrile, which is made up of repeating units of acrylonitrile. The nitrile group, which is an N atom bound to a C atom, is what gives the molecules its specific properties and what makes the molecule highly polar, meaning it is very water loving. Because of these polar nitrile groups, the chains or longer molecules stick together, which gives acrylic its features or wool-like structure. Acrylic is actually the man-made fiber that resembles wool the most. Acrylic has that warmth, that softness that wool also has, whereas it's way more resistant than wool, however, it's less breathable. And you can get that slightly plasticky feel in cheaper yarns. So when buying acrylic, it's important to buy better quality yarn to reduce the plasticky feel of it. In regards to sustainability, acrylic yarn making is very energy intensive and not very sustainable. Furthermore, it uses petrochemicals, which is the same that is used for fossil fuels, which is not very environmentally friendly either. When you have the acrylic yarns and you've made your garments and you wash it, it unfortunately sheds microplastics into the nature and into the water that you're washing it with, which is also not very sustainable. However, acrylic yarn does have a long lifespan, which reduces the environmental impact as there's no need to actually change it out or make other garments because your garments will be very durable. So if you're planning on knitting projects that you're going to be wearing for many, many years, acrylics might not actually be a terrible choice of yarn. Next up, let's take a look at polyester, which is probably the most well-known plastic or polymer there is. Yes, polyester or PET is exactly what is used in plastic bottles and why you've heard so much about it. Chemically speaking, it's made from ethylene glycol and terephthalic acid. Here, the ester bonds of the chemical structure is essential. So when you're making this polymer, you're actually drawing the fibers from each other during the making, which gives a very, very strong and durable fabric or yarn. The benzene ring in the PET structure is very essential for all of its properties. And it's what makes it extremely strong, wrinkle resistant, very durable. However, it also makes it have a very low absorption of water because it's highly non-polar, which means that it can feel very sweaty on the skin. And like with polar, meaning water loving, non-polar means non-water loving. However, because of this high water hating property, PET is very nice to use for outerwear clothes and it is very weather resistant. Polyester is actually one of the most recycled fibers, which also means that you're able to find a lot of recycled polyester yarn out there. But like with acrylics, polyester still sheds microplastics into the environment, and virgin polyester is very energy intensive as well. Yet, like with acrylic, it has a high durability, so you're able to wear the clothes that you make from this for many, many years, which makes it more sustainable. Lastly, let's talk a bit about nylon, which is actually the man-made fibers hero. Originally, nylon was actually created as a man-made silk substitute, and as it's a polyamide, it kind of has the same chemical structure as silk and wool has. Or, well, it has amide bonds, which is the important part in this. Nylon actually has a very special vibe and behaves a bit differently due to the amide bonds. The amide bonds means that nylon is very elastic, it is tough and abrasion resistant, it is smooth but yet strong, and it has a better moisture absorption than polyester or acrylic. And this is why nylon is often combined with other fibers to make sock yarns or clothes yarn as well, because it can help give wool that durability that wool naturally doesn't have, while you have the wool for breathability and feel. So standard nylon has a very high environmental footprint, and this is due to the very energy intensive production and the emissions from the production, as well as very slow biodegradation. However, there's recycled nylon like Econil, which is a recycled or upcycled form of nylon, which is a growing alternative to using virgin nylon. Okay, so this is a lot of information, so let's do a rapid fire comparison. So acrylic is good for cozy sweaters or blankets and anything that you want to feel soft and woolen-like. It is warm, it is soft, and it is low cost. However, it has a low breathability, so you have to keep that in mind, and it sheds microplastic when washing. Polyester is very durable and is very water resistant, which makes it great for outdoor wear. It is very strong and weather resistant. However, it has a low moisture absorption, so it can feel a bit sweaty and plasticky on the skin. Nylon is great for socks or stretchy garments because it is very elastic and abrasion resistant. However, it is very energy intensive to make virgin nylon, and it also sheds microplastics when washing. Okay, and I want to do some final thoughts like I do in all of my videos, and casting a light on sustainability, because sustainability is not black and white, it's about making better choices. And science actually says that one of the biggest factors in sustainability in regards to clothing items is if you're going to be wearing them for a longer period of time. So if you're intending to knit your garments and wearing them for many years, it is not necessarily bad to buy acrylic yarn. Just keep in mind that if you choose to knit with acrylic yarn, I would highly recommend to buy one of the washing bags that you can get that is a filter for the microplastic, so it helps the environment and it helps the water. So for synthetic yarn, the most sustainable choices is usually to go for a more high-end and quality yarn to make sure that it lasts for a long period of time and feels nice on your skin. Furthermore, like with all knitting or buying clothes, is to make sure that you're able to wear the pieces for many, many years to come, and it is something that you really love. And lastly is, as I mentioned, washing them gently and with the special washing bags. Okay, and now let's dive into the question that you have been waiting on, namely why acrylic yarn pills. Acrylic yarn is made from a very stiff polymer, which is kind of brittle, so it means that it easily breaks off into pieces. These pieces will clump together, which is actually one of the features that people enjoy with acrylic because it mimics that of wool, which also clumps together. However, this causes pilling, or it will stay on top of your shirt and come off into small bits. Furthermore, because acrylic doesn't absorb water, it can create a lot of static electricity. So like you rubbing a balloon on your head and your hair goes poof. The same happens with the acrylic, but they clump together because of it. And yeah, that's why sometimes you have that pilling on your acrylic shirts. And lastly, the acrylic fibers are very strong. So as I've mentioned, one of the very big features and nice things about synthetic made fibers is the durability that they have. But it also means that when pilling occurs, especially for acrylics, it will stick to the shirt and unlike that of wool that sometimes just falls off, it usually doesn't happen with acrylics, so you have to peel them off. So yeah, if we got to combine this into one sentence, acrylics peel because its fiber break into small pieces easily, and those pieces cling together through friction and static, and the strong fibers hold the pills into place in the garments. And I think that was it for this video. If you want more videos mixing knitting with science and yarn fiber chemistry, let me know. I love explaining it to you guys. I love talking about it, and it is one of my very big passions. I hope to see you again soon, and happy knitting until next time.